Now, this morning, we're chatting about a number of topics, and we look forward to a really interesting discussion. And in studio with me, I have the privilege of chatting with the Deputy Chief Secretary and Secretary for Health, Wellness and Social Protection, Dr. Faith Brebnor. Good morning, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago.
Good morning, and thanks for having me, Chanel. It's an honor being here this morning.
Right. Well, it's always I always look forward to having discussions with you. And as I read in our news in 90 seconds, we are talking heavily this week about that transition that is happening at one of the highest offices in government, and that's the office of the Prime Minister. We saw on Monday where the Prime Minister made his official announcement, even though we heard of it over the weekend. He made that official announcement explaining that he's leaving and everything that comes with that. And he then indicated that the parliamentary caucus would have selected MP Stuart Young. And this is who the party is making a smooth transition towards becoming the Prime Minister. Next, and do you have any perspectives on that?
So I hear trying to get me in trouble this bright and early morning. So I think what is happening may be a repeat of what happened in Tobago recently, where there seems to be some kind of internal wranglings in a political organization in the PNM. And that is causing itself to bleed into the governance structure of the country, in this case, the entire government of Trinidad and Tobago, which in and of itself, I have some general concerns about, because when the people of Trinidad and Tobago voted at the last general election, there were kind of clear expectations as to who they were voting for to be Prime Minister and so forth. So for an organization to kind of decide in and of itself that this is what they are going to do, and in essence foist that upon the citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago, is a cause for concern. May I suggest, though, that the same way in Tobago, in the Tobago House of Assembly, the people of Tobago indicated that they did not appreciate that kind of bleeding of partisanship into the THA. Maybe the Trinidad and Tobago, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, would have a similar kind of feeling and will show itself in the results of the general election, which are to come soon. But, you know, unfortunately, it is something that we have to contend with. Unfortunately, as indicated by, Mr. Lee Hunt, that it seems to be legal, but there are some serious moral issues that we need to look at. And I think that the people of Trinidad and Tobago will decide whether they were happy with this decision, and whether they are willing to continue with a similar decision after the general election. So we will see.
There are persons who would also argue that in the case of this current administration, there was a transition made while in governance as well, that many persons may not have agreed with, coming in as a PDP government and going into another election as a TPP government. Isn't it one of the same?
It is not, because the biggest difference is that even though that happened in the political sphere, we did not allow that to interfere with the governance of the Tobago House of Assembly. As a matter of fact, one of the things that happened is that one individual just decided to pull himself out. And the rest of us, who were the ones doing the work, who were the ones running the divisions, the chief secretary remained the chief secretary and so forth, that process stayed. And as a matter of fact, I think what you saw was us showing a specific kind of discipline and leadership and commitment to what we went into the Tobago House of Assembly with, ensuring that we maintained that and ensuring that what was happening on the political front did not interfere with the Tobago House of Assembly and the running of the Tobago House of Assembly. So by no means do I think it's the same thing at all. We were very, very clear that we were not going to allow the political wranglings to interfere with the governance, and that is the difference between us and them.
And you hinted to contention in the People's National Movement here in Tobago where leadership is concerned. And I know that just on Monday, the political leader for the Tobago PNM Council, Ansel Dennis, indicated that though some persons feel like he may have been the correct leader to lead them through a difficult time and step back now that they are going into an election, that he is going to continue to lead the party. Is there more to that we, the general public, may not know, that you have a little more insight on?
I have absolutely no insight on what is happening in that organization. I just sincerely hope that they will do like we did and not allow whatever is happening among them internally in the partisan side to affect the bread and butter and to affect the lives of Tobagonians. Again, if he wishes to continue being the leader in Tobago, he was the leader back then, and here we are. So if he wants to continue with his failed leadership, that is their problem. That is their business. We will continue doing what we need to do on behalf of the people of Tobago. And it is clear that back then they wanted us to be here, and that is why we are here, and we sincerely hope that we are meeting their expectations and they will continue to have us in place.
Do you think that the way this transition was done was strategically set up for the Prime Minister to allow for who he wanted to come next, as opposed to going along with the requisite procedure that their party has set up? Because we have heard from members of the party, such as Jennifer Baptiste Primus, that from her perspective, the Prime Minister is undermining a process that made him the political leader. What are your views on this?
So I think that, again, it goes back to, it is very clear that as much as they are trying to portray this level of unity and this level of discipline, that the membership of the party, of that party, are unhappy with what has happened, and they are trying to say to the rest of us, we're fine, nothing to see over here, nothing to, we're fine, when in fact, that seems to not be the case. But again, that is their political issues on that side, and I am just hoping, for example, that it does not continue to affect the lives of the people who are on the ground. For example, one of the biggest criticisms that we've heard thus far is that the Prime Minister, who was the one who implemented this state of emergency, literally 5 minutes after you say to the country, we are in a dire situation, we need to do this state of emergency, you come and have a party, and then we hear, I gone, I'm going out, I'm going to do my own thing, kind of thing. And then the rest of us are left to pick up the pieces of that. Again, I am not sure what is happening within the organization, but they need to be mindful that the decisions they make affect the rest of us. And that is what I am most concerned about, that they keep making decisions that seem to be based on their political wranglings internally, and it is negatively affecting the rest of us.
Understood. I'm glad that you touched a bit on that state of an emergency that we're in right now. And from your perspective, do you think that this is effective to fight crime here in Tobago?
So I think, when it happened, a reporter called me literally as I was looking at my phone reading the notice that was sent, was it last week or whenever that was. And I said to the reporter then that this is a late response to something that has been happening for the entire year. 2-3 months into the year, we already recognized that we were having significant challenges with crime. We already were seeing the statistics showing that if we continue with this trajectory, we will be where we ended up at the end of the year. So to wait literally until the last day, the second to last day, to then decide this is what we're going to do, kind of shows a thinking that is reactive in the worst possible way. Now, in terms of whether it will work, the reality is that our national security apparatus, which includes the police, the Coast Guard, those entities, they primarily serve a response type of function. So after the crime has been committed, the police run in to try to find the perpetrators, to try to solve the crime, and that kind of thing. So giving them the authority, for example, to run up in people's house and lock up people, may help them in that regard. Although that kind of shows that they don't necessarily have the kind of intelligence that is required to get the information in a decent amount of time to get the necessary legal requirements like the warrants and so forth, because that is in essence what the state of emergency does. It removes the requirement to go in and actually make your case and get the legal documentation before running in, which probably says something about the investigative and the kind of information that the TTPS has to work with. And that in and of itself is something for concern and something that we need to look at. Whether it will work in Tobago, we are yet to see what has come out of it. Unfortunately, it has not stopped, for example, a murder that we've already had on the island. I have not seen any statistics that shows that, for example, the perpetrators associated with the murders have been caught yet or anything like that. So I honestly don't know where that is going. But I am hoping that we kind of think about this, and I am hoping that Tobagonians think through the causes of crime in a little different manner so that we don't need a state of emergency going down the road.
Right, and I'm glad that you touched on the fact that there still have been a number of murders, because that's a part of the conversation. We even saw Attorney Hector being killed during the state of emergency. So is it the state of emergency clearly has not been a deterrent to criminals?
Yeah.
So what else then?
So I think, one of the things that we have to look through is to really critically think through. Let's almost do a deep dive, root cause analysis. What is actually causing us to have these levels of criminal activities on the island? You see people talking very quickly about the external factors. So you hear people talking about the bad man music, the Trinidad music, and those kinds of things. But those are external factors that influence what people do, certainly. But there are also internal, intrinsic factors that we need to look back to figure out what has changed, what has caused a situation where somebody thinks it's okay to kill someone else for what seems to be trivial matters, and how did we get to that point? And I think until we actually do that kind of deep diving into what are the intrinsic and the external factors, we will continue having the problem, and we will continue having to have state of emergencies going along. So I think that is where we need to pay a little bit more attention. I mean, for example, the idea of not killing someone else is something in my mind that you are born with that philosophy of thou shalt not kill, even if you are not quote unquote Christian, and even if you have not read it in a biblical book, in a text. The inner being understands that as a human being, it is wrong to kill another human being. We are born with that. So we now have to go back to what is it within us? What is it within our society? What is it within how we are being raised to have taken away that kind of thinking that is intrinsically who we are?
All right. Well, moving over to another topic now of what's happening in the TPP party, we saw that you guys opened nominations for Tobago East and Tobago West candidates. How has that been going?
So that has been going very well. There are people who are showing a lot of interest. So just so that you know, if you are a member of the Tobago People's Party, you have until it's today, Wednesday. Yes, you have until tonight at midnight or the second before midnight to submit your nomination forms. And that is if you want to contest on behalf of the TPP for Tobago East and Tobago West. So I'm encouraging people, you may not have thought about yourself in that light before, but you like the politics. You see the madness that went on and is going on now over there with those people, and you realize that, hey, Tobago needs better representation. We are encouraging you to be a part of this process with us. And let me just state very quickly that the aim of us in this general election is to ensure that we have two representatives, two people who actually represent the people of Tobago. Yes, they will be under the banner of the TPP, but we've also recognized that in history, recent history has shown us that when it comes to this autonomy issue, autonomy for Tobago, the times when we have moved the needle have always been the time when we do not have a PNM Tobago East and a PNM Tobago West representative. Whenever we have people who are not them in the parliament, that is when Tobago is actually truly represented in the parliament, and that is when we are able to move the discussion, to move the legislation, to move us to become greater in terms of the amount of autonomy that the people of Tobago gets. And that is what we are saying to Tobagonians. This is a perfect opportunity. We see, for example, that the Prime Minister indicated some time ago that he was just going to put it to a vote. And that is exactly what he did. There was no real effort to make this what Tobago wants it to be. So they put it to a vote, they knew what the outcome would have been, which shows that they really did not care for a different outcome in the first place. And now Tobagonians have an opportunity to send two people who are not the two who were there before, because the current Minister for Tobago West and the current MP for Tobago East were the same ones sitting in the Parliament a couple of weeks ago when they just did their thing, not caring for what Tobagonians really want. So this is an opportunity to send two people who are truly going to represent Tobago's wants and Tobago's needs in the parliament, so that we can finally move the needle again in the Tobago autonomy question or quest. And that is what our representatives will do.
Do you think that the party is adequately positioned right now, being a brand new party, to go into that general election?
I think we are, and I think what has happened in Trinidad, and the way the seats are in Trinidad and the way they're maneuvering those seats in Trinidad, these two Tobago seats will be the deciding factor for many of the decisions that happen in the parliament. And let me be totally frank, we plan to do all of the negotiating that we need to do with these two seats. You need that bill passed, you need that thing voted for, because neither of the parties in Trinidad, the way we envision it, will have a real majority in the parliament. So if you need that thing passed, this is what Tobago wants. Let me talk. Right. Let us negotiate.
So do you think that this would truly be the pathway that Tobago needs to get equal treatment on all legislation and consideration as well? Not just the Tobago Autonomy Bill, but ensuring that every piece of legislation takes into account the Tobago House position.
Exactly, certainly. And it would include, for example, us ensuring that we have a seat at all of the state boards, that we have a seat in, like right now, for example, the Tobago and the Tobago House of Assembly does not have a seat at the Caribbean Airlines board. Mm-hmm. Caribbean Airlines, who affects what happens on the island in Tobago probably more than in how they affect it in Trinidad. We do not have a say. Having those two T.P.P seats in Trinidad would ensure that we have a solid voice when Caribbean Airlines is making a decision, when NP is making a decision, when all of these entities is making a decision, when, for example, the Revenue Authority, where, you know, they're coming in to do the new laws for collecting taxes and so forth. Did you know that these people did not even consider that it had a THA and they had staff in Tobago who were THA employees and all of that when they were trying to figure this out? They had no clue. And what is sad about that is that we do have 2 MPs from Tobago who were sitting at the table with them when they were doing all of these things, and they did not represent Tobago. Those are the kinds of shifts that we want to make. And those are the kinds of things that our 2 Tobago People's Party representative will truly be representing the people of Tobago when we elect them to be in the parliament.
All right. Well, we want to thank you so much for being here this morning. Thank you for your time and bringing us all those different perspectives. Guys, we're going to take a break right here. We'll be back right after this. See you soon.